My name is Abigail Kima. I am the producer and host of Hali Hewa, which is a podcast profiling African experts and activists to amplify African climate stories of the climate crisis. Thank you so much for giving me a platform to be heard. And I know having this platform is a privilege. I believe having this platform has to come with a responsibility to be honest and a responsibility to be real. Let me tell you something I know to be real. Earlier this year, I witnessed two young girls, a little over 6 years old, fetching water from a dirty water pan. I watched as they filled their 20-liter jerrycan, which once full, weighed almost as much as them. Together, these little girls pushed it for more than a kilometer along a road littered with rotting animal carcasses, the dead bodies of cattle that have neither pasture nor water to sustain them. I witnessed this in Isiolo County, the northern part of Kenya. But this is the reality for many communities in Africa who find themselves in the front line of the climate crisis today. Northern Kenya is deep into a severe and prolonged drought right now, and people living in this area have not seen rain over 2 years now. Households have completely been devastated by loss of livestock. And one homestead I visited had a herd of 50 cattle and 30 goats before the drought. Now they just have 2 cows and 1 goat left. These pastoralist communities depend on their animals as a source of income, to put food on the table, to take their children to school, and to buy water, which is also becoming a rare and expensive commodity. Women and children are particularly vulnerable to the impacts of the climate crisis, and the situation in Isiolo County is a shocking example of what that looks like. Women have to walk extraordinary distances just to fetch water, and so many of their water sources have completely dried up, and the wells that do remain are dangerous to access. They are deep and surrounded with quicksand, with no vegetation to hold the earth in place. When I visited this area, I was told about a young man who was buried alive inside one of those wells, and it collapsed as he was gathering water. With rising water scarcity, women are becoming more and more vulnerable to gender-based violence, both inside and outside of their homes. Women farmers in the western part of Kenya told me how a combination of severe stress and lack of water to carry out essential household chores is exposing them to domestic violence. It was also shocking to hear, with cases of rape becoming rampant, some women now head to the water sources at midnight in order to avoid long queues with their daughters. Malnutrition is everywhere, with children eating only 1 meal a day. In Isiolo County, water and food insecurity are now so severe that even the school feeding programs have had to be stopped. The climate crisis has pushed many of these communities beyond their capacity to adapt. And as we drove through the region, we came across caravans of people carrying their belongings. They have lost everything to the drought, and their homes have become unlivable. The only choice left is to migrate, but to where? Who knows? I witnessed this with my eyes, and I know that is real. And here at COP, I find myself wondering who is honest. I find myself wondering what is real. The venue itself is confusing enough, but it is also a place full of smoke and mirrors. Let me share one specific example that is relevant to this dialogue today. As I prepared to make this speech, I read the 2022 Global Climate Action Yearbook, and here is one paragraph that caught my attention. Race to zero. Of the 455 larger companies who have been in the campaign for more than a year and reported to the CDP in 2022, 77% have transition plans in line with 1.5. 98% are proceeding with immediate action, and about 68% have publicly committed to align their policy engagement with their climate targets. That's a lot of words and a lot of numbers. But there's something soothing about this paragraph, right? 77% have transition plans in line with 1.5 degrees, and 98% are proceeding with immediate action. But my instinct told me to slow down, to take a little closer look. So I went back to the start. Of the 455 larger companies who have been in the campaign for more than a year and reported to the CDP in 2022, that's a lot of caveats. So I dug a little deeper. There are 8,300 companies in the race to zero. So this paragraph is telling a story that about 5% of the companies involved. I was also surprised by the reporting caveat. We're in a climate crisis. Are there really companies taking credit for their participation in Race to Zero who aren't even reporting their emissions? I asked the high-level champions team, would you like to know the answer? They told me only 20% of Race to Zero companies report their emissions to CDP. 20%. This lack of transparency and accountability is not exclusive to private companies. Another recent report from the New Climate Institute says that only 25% of the international mitigation initiatives launched in 2021, including 24 at COP26, have monitoring arrangements in place. I desperately want to believe that the action is happening. But can I trust that these initiatives are real? As we turn towards the Climate Action Panel, please remember what's at stake. Smoke and mirrors betray the women without water. Smoke and mirrors betray the children with malnutrition. Smoke and mirrors betray those whose homes and lives have become unlivable. Please, I ask you to be honest. I ask you to be real. Thank you.